So that's the beauty of the documentation in Google. So I just opened up the documentation for ifstream by googling C++, by googling C++ fstream, and here it says that to open it, it's the function, or the name is actually called ifstream, which I forgot because I forget everything. Okay, so ifstream, I'll name it sin, and then I'll open my text file with it. I need to give it the path of where my maze text file is saved, so I need to give it the path of where it can find this, which I handily have ready here. Let's give it that path. That should open the text file. But as you guys know, to read one character from using my fstream, like to read between a space, I use this operator. I go like this, and I read whatever the character is, right? Basically I want to read 49 characters, مش كده? So like I want to read 7 characters horizontally and then 7 characters vertically and fill them into this array. Like we do that by doing a nested for loop. I less than rows. Oh, I made a really bad mistake here. This should be calls. You really don't want to have, like, because in case I want to change it, I shouldn't have had the 7 here. Like, it's just better to always have things in terms of rows and columns. And then I++, and then for int j, I see you error. Less than rows, let's fix it now. Okay, j++. And then I'm gonna declare a character here. A character, like x, that's gonna be the character that I'm gonna be reading. And I'll say, actually we don't need to do that. Never mind, we'll just read immediately into the array fab sin r at I and j. So what this is saying is it's gonna open this text file, and it's gonna take anything before a space, and it's gonna put it in the array at I and j. Okay. For this character array that here I declared is of type 7 of 7, مثلا in the very first time, the array at 0, 0, the very first character, will take the very first thing that I inputted, and this is going to go on 7 by 7 times 49 times. For here my array should be filled, but just in case, because we like to double check our work, let's cout it. Cout. And I think I need to declare #include iostream so I can use my cout, and then using namespace std, and then let's end line, and that should give me my text file if I didn't do anything wrong. Let's try that. Oh, we didn't call the function. Okay, init, it takes the array, the maze, the player. Let's see. Okay, good, that worked. That means the reading function is correct. So now we've done our first thing, which is filling in the array itself. And now let's fill in the sprite. The maze sprite is basically going to be our 2D array of sprites. Let's actually, I want to show you what I mean. Okay. Let's just do a sprite right now, for example, for the player, مثلا, for example. Okay? If I remember, like the circle exactly like we did, in order for us to see a sprite or anything on my window, I have to give it a texture and I have to set its position, right? To give something a texture, we declare our texture variable for texture t, and then remember, like in the last video, I'm going over this like quickly because we did this in the last video. Load from file, and I give it the path. Again, to not waste time, I already have my path here somewhere. My player path, here it is. Okay, for the texture. Okay, that should be the player thing. And then we need to attach this texture to my player, like exactly like we did with the circle.setTexture. And then I'm gonna give it t. And then we go down to the draw and we say window.draw. Oh, we have to give it a position, window.draw. Our player, what did I name the player? We named the player just player. Okay. Like I said, we have to give the player a texture, which we did. and we set the texture, and we have to set the position of the player. Dot set position. Our window here is 800 by 600. Let's just put it on anything like last time, 400 by 300. And I should see my player. Okay, good, there's my player. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is, how do I show all of my my grass and my brick and stuff like that? What I want is, I want a brick here and a brick here and a brick here, like 7 bricks here, 7 bricks here, and grass and grass and grass. So in order for me to do that, I'm not gonna save in my program just one sprite that's a brick. I'm gonna save actually for like however many are in the text file. I'm gonna save like however many these are. See all these H's here? However many those are, these have to be saved here. I need to save all of these sprites. In total, I'm gonna have 49 sprites for the board, because 7 by 7. And I'm going to have 1 sprite for the player. I'm saving my sprites in this 2D array of sprites, and I'm naming it maze, and it has 7 by 7. Let me show the decoration for it. It has 7 by 7 different sprites, and it's named maze. I hope that makes sense. Like, I'm saving them in there instead of having, for example, brick 1, a sprite brick 1, sprite brick 2 until like sprite brick 49. You know what I mean? Or grass. I'm saving all of these different sprites here inside the maze. فبس. I hope that wasn't redundant. I just really wanted to make that clear. So I'm just going to remove like this code for adding the player, and I'm not going to draw the player because we're not going to do that yet. And let's go back to our initialization function. Remember, this is where we left off. We know that the array actually gets stored in and it works fine. Let me stop that. Okay. خلاص, the character array is filled in now. Let's fill in the sprite maze with the proper textures. But first, let's declare our textures here. Texture grass and brick. Okay. Again, grass.load from file like we did. I'll give it the path. Give it the path. I'll just copy this, like just taking the paths. Okay, for grass, load from file my path, and wall, load from file my path. So now my textures are ready. Okay, here inside the loop, every time I take a character, I want to make sure, like I want to understand what character it is. If the character, excuse me, that I'm taking in is H, then in my maze, I'm gonna have, H, I'm gonna have my wall, or my brick. Okay, brick. Okay, does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So basically, let's look at the tatani. At the first iteration, the first character I'm going to take here is H into my character array. If this is H, then inside my sprite array, هشوف what I have in here. Depending on what I have in here, I'm going to fill in what this 2D array of sprites. Okay? If the character I'm sinning now, that I'm reading now is H, if bar at ij, I remember at this line I have it, equal H, that means my sprite, hina for my maze here, it's going to be that, like I'm gonna store my brick. Okay? So I'm gonna do maze, maze at I and j, and how do I do that? I need to initialize it. How did we initialize the sprite? We set the texture on it. I deleted the code, but remember, like we did with the player, we set the texture and we set a position, like we did with the circle, like we did with everything. For dot set texture, the brick, because this is H, but I'll give it brick, and we need to give it a position. For maze at I, okay, the positions and the position is gonna be really it's gonna be very trial and error because, like, I'll show you now. For now, like the set position, it takes an X position and a Y position. But ideally, like you'll find yourself wanting to say 0, 0. مثلا for the first time you're setting it at index like I and J. like at row, because remember set position takes here an x value and a y value. But you'll find yourself wanting to say put it at ij, but you'll find because usually it's going to be bigger, it'll make errors. But actually, let me show you. We'll preview it and you'll see the mistake, and we'll go back up and fix it. For now, again, this line we set the texture for the sprite, like for our arbitrary sprite at I and j within our 2D array of sprites named maze. We set the texture on that sprite, and we set the position on it as well. Okay, that's if it's h, we give it طبعا brick, and else, because again, we'll just give it grass. Maze at I j dot set texture grass, and maze at I j dot set position ij. And this isn't correct, but like we'll look at it. We'll see why. For now, I've done that in my player. Oh, another thing I forgot to mention. My player has an initial position here at E. Okay? Like anytime I see E in my text file, that means that's the starting point of my position. Thus, my player actually is not going to be part of this array because this array is just the maze. The player is going to be drawn on top of the maze. So when I see the E, I'm just going to know that the player's x and y positions are E. Let's declare all the variables I need. We need a variable for my player's x and y position, for int player x and int player y. You'll see why we need these variables later, but we do need to keep track of the position of the player. فبس. And in fact, we need to set it, so I'm just going to add it as a parameter here. Int player x, int player y. I'm declaring it here, وبعدين طبعا I'm going to give it to the function now. Player x. See, I'm changing things as I go along. I'm discovering what I need. Like, that is life. But yeah. Okay. If we want to say if it's h, then add bricks. If it's not, okay, is it the player? If r at ij, if the character I'm reading is the player and signified by character e, then set. Oh, these have to be passed by reference because I want to update the value of this player x and player y so it can be saved in the main function. Okay. So I'm gonna say then player x equals I and player y equals j. This is the position, this is the index of the player variable, so that's the initial position of the player. And then set texture grass in the same place. Remember, the maze, the player is not part of the maze, but even like where this E is in the maze, it's gonna actually be like grass because the player is allowed to stand there. That looks fine to me so far. But let's actually draw. Let's draw the sprites so we can make sure that the maze is properly initialized. So how do I draw this array of sprites اللي هي my maze? Am I going to say مثلا window dot draw maze? I can't do that. I can't do that because the draw function takes only one sprite at a time. But I can do this. Let's see what happens when I do that. That's one of the sprites in the array. I get a white square. Interesting. Why? Texture grass brick. Why did we get that? That's weird. Why did that happen? Let's look at the console. That's very strange. I'm gonna pause this video and figure out why that happened.